Welcome, Michael Rossoff. As a senior lecturer in macrobiotics, as well as a counsellor and an acupuncturist for many years, you've joined us here today as you're also working with us, Concord Institute, and running the Basic Alchemy program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I would like to know, in your opinion, would you consider macrobiotics to be a diet in the modern sense?
In the modern sense, that's exactly what people expect it to be or want it to be. Some set of rules and very specific about foods. But in truth, the whole intention of macrobiotics is bigger and broader from the start. But most people come to it because they want to make some dietary changes. But as time goes on, if they're really going to grow with it and succeed with it in their everyday life, they have to see it as a way of eating, not just a diet, which sounds more restricting mindset. As a way of eating, it's just how to learn how to eat appropriately. So it takes on a different consciousness, really. And that's really towards the heart of what macrobiotics is about.
So, what does the word macrobiotic actually mean?
Well, the word means great life, big life, and the point really is that we can see that our lives have much more potential than what we actually end up bringing forth in our life. And this is kind of the secret message underneath macrobiotics as a dietary practice is that it's also to help enliven or energize some of those deeper aspects of our lives so that we can feel empowered to manifest our life more and more fully. And to do that, we have to maintain health. And it's because of diseasements that we lose sight of this greater potential within us because we get so wrapped up in discomforts and diseases. So by creating better health, we actually feel more capable of fulfilling our bigger visions and dreams of who we can be.
Okay, and is macrobiotics something that's recently appeared, or does it have a history?
It has a history, and yes, we could say it's recently appeared, and that might be, we could say the more immediate teachers of macrobiotics are from Japan. That would be Michio Kushi and Herman Ihara in America, teachers in America who are Japanese, and there's others, Kikuchi in Brazil, and Levy was in France. There have been other teachers, but most have been Japanese, and they all got inspired and learned from George Osawa, who we could call the grandfather of macrobiotics. But that is, he put a name to it and a kind of a focus to it. But he didn't create it. It's been around forever. It's been around in the East and the West. There have been sensibilities about using food as a core means of altering ourselves for the better, consciousness-wise, physically-wise. And if I were to try and trace it way back into history, I would say macrobiotic origins go back to Taoist, early ancient practices. And that's where a lot of Oriental medicine came from, and a lot of Qigong and martial arts came from, were those early Taoists who were questing for one thing: longevity. So their quest was, what will sustain our bodies to its fullest possible extent? Through diet, exercise, meditation, breathing practices, all kinds of ways. And in a way, they applied the yin and the yang to that to create, you could say, experiments or explorations in how to achieve a longer, healthier, fuller life. And that's what I would say macrobiotics really goes back to, even though it's rarely talked about that way.
And Michael, would you say that macrobiotics has been practiced by many ethnic and diverse cultures from around the world.
Absolutely. You could say, not could, I will say, all traditional cultures have very clear dietary practices, disciplines, and traditions around food. And it's really, macrobiotics doesn't even need to exist in a formal sense if it weren't for modern societies really twisting food to such an extent in the modern world that people have lost sensibility about food. And you could say, well, they've lost that sensibility of other traditions and naturalness of life as well. But food's impact is so great on our total being that if food isn't reestablished as a centerpiece to a natural life, other things won't work, really. So, but you're right. All traditional cultures, present or past, have very clear understanding of food, and a lot of ritual around food, and that we shouldn't lose. I mean, there's something of great value there, and in a sense, that's really what macrobiotics is about.
And that sounds to me like that's keeping a natural order, keeping people within a natural order based around the seasons, and eating alongside those seasons, eating in sync with those seasons.
Right.
Which is something we seem to have moved away from with the global availability of food.
Exactly. Of course, in the past, people had to eat according to season. There wasn't this mass transportation that a banana can be here year-round and things like that. So it was obvious then, and we need to regain the core of that we are influenced subtly but directly by seasonal change, moon cycles, what else? Other parts of nature, right? The weather patterns influence crops, influence the oceans, and so it makes variations in everyday eating. But modern people can eat the same year-round, and that's very unnatural. It's really never been done that way.
So there must be some impacts on actual systemic health, given the fact that we're not now following those rhythms or patterns. I was wondering, how does that pertain to you? What difference has macrobiotics made in your personal life or experience?
Well, it's been a lot of years I've been involved with macrobiotics, over 40 years. So I've experienced a lot of personal change. But unlike a lot of people today who are coming to macrobiotics, today I don't mean this day, but in the past 10, 20 years, where most people are seeking it out because of some health crisis. I never had any health problems. I mean, I wasn't attracted to it because of some exact problem. I was really attracted to it for its philosophy. Kind of the more philosophical side of Orientalism and the yin and yang. This really struck me very deeply as very true and very meaningful. But in my own life, I ate way too narrow, way too strict, and created some kind of imbalance, and then I'd go and eat too much another way. You know, there's a learning process. And of course, I was coming from American diet, you know, though I was not immersed in it by the time I started macrobiotics. But I didn't know how to eat. I just knew I didn't like meat anymore, I didn't like dairy anymore. I just didn't know what to eat. So macrobiotics opened me up to more foods, especially vegetables. Because I never was personally much of a vegetable eater, and I just fell in love with vegetables. But health-wise, it just made me more and more strong over the years, I would say.